What exactly is China doing in Africa? What's your take on that?
Western countries have come to Africa for centuries to rob Africa of its resources. They should be admitting what they've done. Some are rich because of the resources they took from Africa. They never thought of helping Africa to develop. They subjugated Africa. They took the political power, economic power, and then made us, therefore, socially, to have no power at all. We had to fight to liberate ourselves. They were never here to help. They were here to rob. After decolonization, they continued to do so. They could no longer use political power. They influenced it indirectly, but they held on to the economic levers of these countries. They were dominating, they were benefiting, they were doing nothing to help us. They created banks that were instruments of subjugating us. They would say, for an example, to the IMF, when the IMF will say, my country is in trouble, can you help? It will put conditions that will put you in a worse situation than before. So it was not helping. What China is doing, China is coming and saying, here we are. We know where you come from. We are here to work with you. For the first time, when China came here, highways began to emerge in the continent of Africa that were never there when they were here all the time. China is working with us. FOCAC is one example that China as a country is ready to sit down and discuss how do we help, how do we relate to one another. And perhaps many other FOCAC summits that took place before, people were not very clear. This FOCAC that has taken place here in South Africa has made matters to be more clearer than any other time. The kind of pledges that China has made.
Okay, so you're most welcome to my page, The Region Show, right here. You're from this year, and today this content, sensitive content, so going to compel me to speak English to most of our African brothers who live around the world and who doesn't understand my Ghanaian language. So today there's a sensitive issue that we are going to discuss it, and as a young Africans, we need to pay attention to certain agendas that it has been pursued for a long time, and we need to pay attention as a Ghanaian youth or as an African youth. And today, share the page, The Reason Show, YouTube and Facebook, share the page, and we have to start learning, and we must start to understand some politics or policies, and the people in power, and we need to understand the game of politics. So today, I'm going to explain some things about the geopolitics of the Asian people, and then the Africans, and then the Western countries. So based on the video that you are about to watch, and I'm going to show you a video of a former president of South Africa. His name is Jacob Zuma, and Zuma is making some claims by saying that China is far better than Americans occupying our continent. So the fact is, we are going to weigh both of them, and you as an African, we need to understand geopolitics or globalization. Now, some of our leaders have pursued this kind of agendas for a long time, pretending or behaving like they are so incompetent, we are so incapable of managing our own affairs, to the extent that anytime you see African leader trying to replace somebody to solve his or her own problems, it shows you clearly that this is an incompetent leader, or this is a person who does not understand the warfare of the world, or economic battles of the world. Now, Africans have been crying. We have been crying all day, all night about self-development, how the continent is going to develop. So tonight, I'm going to show you a video of Jacob Zuma claiming that Chinese are far better than Americans or the Western countries. Now, for me and maybe you, we all know that none of these people came for our interest. As usual, they are there to pursue or to look for their own benefit. And whether the Europeans or West Africans, the Western countries, none of them is there to make you get what you want in life. So straight away, this is the reason. So we are here to reason as young Africans, and we have to find time to pay attention so that we can expose, or we need to break down and decode the political agendas which they have used certain big words, big English to deceive the young ones, as it happened some time ago when slavery started. And I will show you a video in America that up to now, a young African American does not know and doesn't understand, and still thinks that it is your so-called great grandfathers who sold them to the Western countries. And I will show you that. Do you think I'm joking? No, I'm not going to joke. But first of all, before we do that, let's listen to this former president, Jacob Zuma, and what he said about China. And not forgotten, let me remind you that a television station or a media network in Africa, the whole of the continent, calling themselves CGTN, which is a major tool for the Chinese communist governments. This is a major tool that it is similar to the BBC to the British, and then the CNN to the Americans. And this is CGTN is also another one propagating the agendas of the Chinese communist government. So as usual, Chinese TV trying to put their interests first, trying to take advantage of a continent which is dominated by their own enemies, and they are trying to defend themselves. So let's review this video, and then after that we'll give you further and better particulars of this show, the Reason Show. Let's review this video.
And the kind of relations that it has with different countries. China is not here to rob or to colonize. It's here to help Africa develop. President Xi Jinping said it himself. We need to develop together. We are together making progress. These are the issues. For an example, the issue of infrastructure, energy, many others. Nobody took care of these matters. Even if you said to them, we need a road, they never came. If you talk to China, China says, let us come. Let us make the roads. Now, it is even voting money so that we can quicken the decision that has been taken by the AU to create the infrastructure continental. China says that we have taken that decision. Here are the resources for that. Energy, we are together. They are just feeling they are being replaced because they were here doing nothing for the people here, doing something for themselves. China is coming to help. As it helped us in the struggle to liberate ourselves from them, it is now helping us to develop so that we can be economically independent, stand on our own, take our own decisions. We know that argument is a flawed argument.
Okay, so that was Jacob Zuma, a former president, from South Africa. And as you heard him, he's trying to justify the invasion of Chinese, or whatever description that you give it to Chinese, as long as they are occupying the continent of Africa. And he's trying to justify the reason, the purpose of this Chinese coming to Africa in the name of they are there to help we the Africans. Okay, it's a good idea, but you and I will testify that is it truly that Chinese are in Africa to help us? Drop your comments. Let me hear what you think, your suggestions and opinions. As I said earlier, we need to pay attention to certain agendas led by some of our leaders in the continent, and these are the same people that they have been given the power, and things has fall flat, and as usual they find another way to justify what they couldn't do. So the reason why I have much interest on this issue is that these are the same thing that history will let us understand that back in the days where these Europeans came to Africa, they did whatever, anything that they want to us, and the last resort was they took our ancestors to to spread them across the globe, and the last resort was the result of you and I suffering for that mess. And they, based on the European content or context or perspective, they claim that it's we the Africans, which our great grandfathers sold our brothers to them. It is not them who forced us to take us into slavery. So now, another form of slavery is going to happen in support of, or in the effort of the same leadership. Now, nobody says any country can rule itself without the support of any country. No, we are not saying that, but we are making it assured, we are making this assurance that some people or some leadership in Africa are helping to put us in a situation or in a corner, tight corner, that we are not capable. Africans are not capable. Secondly, we are too dependent, and we cannot live without depending on any other country. It's good. Okay, now let's check it out. See this, my African people, I want you to pay attention. Let's have a conversation. We want to reason, and at the end of the day, we will challenge ourselves to see, is it true that Chinese are in Africa to help us? And so, don't you agree with me that the Chinese are following the suit of the Western countries, whether you mention America, Canada, or the European countries? Don't you think that these people have studied the game and they are using the name called globalization to compete and to take advantage of you? Yes. If they do that, it's good for them. It's a plus, because it shows the weakness of our people. So now, based on Jacob Zuma's claim that China is in Africa to help us, don't you think Jacob Zuma is so incompetent to the extent that he has been a president? Mr. Zuma has been a president, and for him to be more competent, he was so incompetent to the extent that he couldn't do much more for his country like South Africa, and he amassed wealth for himself. Now, on the set that I did on the website, if they are lying, I'm also lying, and I can stand to be corrected. Jacob Zuma is worth of $20 million now as a politician. And the reason why I'm bringing this to this conversation is that there's a common sense will tell you that you can't put all your eggs into one basket. So in order for us to build our country or our continent by our own self, or in rare terms, in business term, now you see the reason why I'm much interested in African youth to understand this and pay attention to is that even if you want to start business and you want to build business knowledge, you don't put all your finances or all your seed money into one business. You don't do that. You always make sure you put something in, and then it brings something out before you can move on. Is that how we do business? So in order to manage a country or to govern a country, you don't spend all, or you don't eat all your eggs. Is it not true, my brothers and sisters? Is it not true that you don't need to eat all your eggs if you want more chicken? Is it not true? Now, these are the leaders that we have them in Africa, that they think the Europeans, the Americans, or the Chinese will save their eggs, and then they will export the eggs into our country for us to eat, whereby we are eating our own eggs. Don't you think that we are making fun of our own selves? Don't you think the Chinese see us as people, a content of incompetent people who don't have critical thinking? Don't you believe that? So do you think Chinese are so stupid that they save their resources, save their finances, save their financial power, and then squeeze their people through taxation and force their citizens to work hard, pay taxes, and then they will bring that money to you because you are an African, you are so handsome? Do you think Chinese are so stupid like that? That's the question I'm asking. And these are the critical things that we Africans must pay attention, and then we need to decode this so that we will be ashamed to ourselves and start start reforming our thinking, because most of our countries, politicians behave like this, and it has never getting us to anywhere. At the end of the sword, we go to IMF, we go to World Bank, we start going to different countries to beg. So, based on the claims of Jacob Zuma as a former president of South Africa, as my brothers and sisters, if you are watching me from any part of our continent, don't you think that this man is pushing an agenda as it happened 500 years ago, that now in the schools of Western world, especially in America, they believe and they have been taught that it's your grandfather who sold our brothers and sisters to them? Or do you think I'm joking? Let me show you something here. Let me show you something here. Now I'm taking you to BBC, CNN, and I will give video credit to CNN, and I'm going to show you a video where the British are challenging those who live in America, claiming they need a reparation. The Western countries to pay some reparation money or anything to them. Now, listen to this video, and you understand me where I'm coming from. And I want to tell you that it is the second type of slavery is coming, and Jacob Zuma's and this type of a leadership, they will supervise it. But before that, let me show you this video. Credit to CNN that Don Lemon is an African American who trying to push an agenda that the slave masters must pay something to Africans. And now listen to the answer that he got from the British monarch spokesperson or whatever. Now listen to it. Let's review this video.
Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa, and across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely, that's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, so as you heard, the lady, the British lady, trying to explain to punch holes on an argument. They call it a hollow argument, that it is not the British who pushed the agenda of slavery, but rather the kings and the queens in Africa sold our brothers to them. And this is a very sensitive topic that I am so passionate, so conscious to talk about it, because that was the root of all trouble that you and I found ourselves in. Now, the reason why I am pushing this video to you, for you to watch or to set a for the future reference, is that, listen, Jacob Zuma is claiming that Chinese are in Africa to help us, but I don't know. If you have even got time to live in China, you will understand the game that Chinese are not Father Christmas. Chinese are not there to give their resources for you. And in this world, there's no country that is there to save you, but rather they are there to pursue their own interests, as long as the British, the Americans, or the Canadians, or any other country lives in Africa. Now, the reason why some of this African young Africans doesn't understand the game is that they have positioned our mindset to the state that they don't want to get us involved in this kind of agendas, political agendas. They push us into an agenda that we have no idea of what is going to happen to us in the near future. Now, when Jacob Zuma claimed that Chinese are in Africa to help us more than the Americans, it is a critical matter that some of us need to question him, that, Mr. Man, who told you that Chinese are coming to Africa to help you? And don't forget, Jacob Zuma was the president of his time that Chinese are able to build more police stations in South Africa. Don't forget that. In South Africa, you get the Chinese police stations in that country. So it shows you the direction of Jacob Zuma's policy as a leader, it tells you how incompetent was he during his tenure of office, where he amassed wealth, which even now he's standing on a trial in court in South Africa. So my purpose or my anger is that they are pushing us to another slavery, which will become economic slavery. Those time was like a chains and swords and deleting human lives. But now, this time around, this type of slavery that will fall in for the Chinese is going to be economic slavery. And that time, Jacob Zuma will be nowhere to be found. That time, that leader that today, you the young ones, they don't want to get you involved for you to understand the politics, the geopolitics of the world, like the economic battles around the globe. That time, they will be nowhere to be found, and you will pay the consequences. So I'm doing this video for the future references, as that we need to keep in mind that whenever they push any agenda, it's going to go against you and I based on our age. And if you go to any country in Africa and you check the Chinese influence, you will understand where I'm coming from. And one day, maybe I might not be alive, and the young ones will come and they watch this video and they will understand that we make mistake. We made that mistake that we didn't pay attention to political matters. Now, the reason why I show you this video from CNN is that, you see, up to now, in any country, especially in America, the students or any person going to school will want to learn the African history. This is part of the history of the Western world. That they set this narrative that it is your grandfathers, your so-called great-grandfathers, who sold you to them. And it is not them. It's not their forefathers who did that. It is not the Queen Elizabeth, the late Queen Elizabeth's fathers, the Charleses. It is not them, but it's your grandfather from Togo, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia, whatever, Nigeria. It is your grandfather who did that, and it is in their history book, which they continuously pushing this agenda to their case. Listen to this video again. Maybe you don't want to understand what I'm saying. Watch this video again.
If people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa, and when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back.
Now, listen here. He said, the lady said, claim the African kings. So now, your father and my father, she's making a claim that your father and my father, the so-called kings and queens, sold them. They were running around on the high seas, selling our brothers and sisters, and they are rather rescuing our people. Listen carefully. According to this woman here, claiming that it is not their forefathers, but rather the African kings and queens. So this is the narrative. So when you meet an African American, any country, they have two eyes to watch you. When they see you as from Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, whatever, they have two eyes to watch you. It's only few who don't understand that maybe it is a propaganda. It is an agenda that they are separate us. But those who believe that who still believe the narrative of these Europeans, they still believe that it is your grandfather who did that to them. Let's keep listening.
Back to the beginning of that supply chain and say, who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages? Absolutely, that's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So you see how Don Lemon's face shows so disappointed. This journalist was so disappointed to hear the lady has so confident to let him understand that it is your grandfather who sold you, but not us. And I go so furious whenever I hear this kind of agendas. But these agendas will wash out all because of our incompetence, and we are not paying much attention to geopolitics and the dynamism of the strategy of the Western countries. Now, coming back to Jacob Zuma's claim that Chinese are here to help Africans. No, it is not true. They are here to make sure they get what they want. And if you see this guy here, Jacob Zuma had this island. Yes, he had this guy amassed wealth for himself when he became a president in South Africa. So as you can see, in the name of globalization, when a president comes in and he got some friends and he lives his lavish life, there's no way they will defend the continent. And in any country that you see them, we use them as a reference, Canada, America, whatever, they are too defensive. They play a defensive tactics to defend their people and their wealth. And when you have a leader like Jacob Zuma in South Africa, there's no way he will be a defensive player, but rather always defend the enemy. Now, going back to his statement that Chinese are more better than the Americans, we will ask him, anything that you borrow from China, is it free? Is Chinese giving you a free lunch? It's a fact. Are they giving a free the grants? Are they giving free loans? No. Every loan has a collateral. So, Mr. President, what are you talking about? And don't you think we don't need to put all our eggs in one basket, but rather separate them? And then we shouldn't use basket to fetch water as we are doing in Africa. Because when you have resources, when you have finances and you misuse your finances, do you still believe that you can still build something? I don't think a normal person will do such things. But we will live in Africa, spend our money unwisely, and then expect the Chinese to come to Africa and then help us to come from our troubles or our challenges, forgetting that they are all like us. Chinese are like us. They pay high risk. They will take a high risk in their countries. If you go to China and you see hard work, how these people work so hard, how they bully their own people to succumb to the rules and the laws, and at the end of the day, they use all these strategies and tactics to organize their taxes, and then you sit in Africa claiming that you are an African, that Americans have deceived you, Europeans have deceived you, so that Chinese are bringing their money to help you. Don't you think you are a joker? Drop your questions. Don't you think as a leader, when you start to think that even if somebody will help you and you still put yourself into that help, that you don't value what you are going to bring on board, don't you think you are a joker? With all due respect, my fellow Africans, drop your comments. What do you think about what Jacob Zuma is saying? What do you think? As an African, do you pay attention to these agendas? Do you think that one day slavery will be on the other side? You cannot have a choice in life. Don't you know that? As an African leader, African child, do you have an idea? Now, the reason why I said this Chinese are behaving like the same as the British or the American. Now, watch this. Anytime you see this television station, it's a network from China. It's a centralized, one of the centralized propaganda tool for the Chinese communist government. So don't forget, CGTN, same as BBC, same as CNN, they are not there for your interest. They are there to pursue or report on the interest of the story that they have interest in. They are not there to do any story that benefits you. So when you watch an interview organized by CGTN and then they put a fellow president like Jacob Zuma on it for him to defend them, you'll understand where I'm coming from. You see, why you need to ask yourself, why is it that Jacob Zuma will be invited to the show to speak on behalf of Chinese government, to defend the Chinese. Why? Because the Chinese also understand the game. And now a continent that most people are fighting on the continent, on the one land, so many countries are fighting for their survival. And Chinese cannot, and they don't want to be left out. And they are seriously doing what they want. And I don't blame them. I cannot blame Chinese, because it is you that you have allowed yourself for them to take over. And I need to blame myself. So in order for me to understand the game, and in the future, I need to understand the political strategy of this kind of leadership or so-called elites like Jacob Zuma. Because anytime you see CGTN in Africa, don't think they are there to pursue your agenda. Never think that. CGTN is a Chinese Communist Party propaganda tool, and they understand the game. They have been there since early 2007. So they understand the game. They know what the BBCs are doing. They know what the CNN are doing. And they also are taking clue. They are following the path. So whenever you see CGTN pushing an agenda, you must know where they are coming from. You must understand the game, that they are not there to defend you. They are there to defend the Chinese wealth. They are there to defend the Chinese. So when you see the African leader trying to defend a country that is pushing its own people, pushing its own ideology into a certain country, and you see him defending, then you realize that we are in trouble. African child is in trouble. You might think you have food, you have phone, you have iPhone, whatever, you have clothes, you are okay, you have your car, you are okay. Now back to Ghana. You know, Chinese are taking control of their communication system. Okay, do you know that? Okay. And in China, the central government controls everything. The central government in China controls what you say and what they want you to say. So one day, when these old people are no more, and when you can't control, or your phone, your communication, your mode of communication is being controlled, one day you remember what I'm saying, because I have lived in China for a long time and I understand the Chinese. And anybody lived in China, when you're on WeChat, you are not with yourself. The WeChat is controlled by the central government of China. Any app that is made in China is controlled. And the Chinese are not joking. They are not playing at all. They understand how the world is going. They understand the game. And they get their people involved in their daily conversation when it comes to leadership. But go back to Africa, where I'm from. They push you for you to get more in love with Western football, the movies, the Hollywood, the beauty of America and China. But for you to get involved in the daily activity of geopolitical news and discussions, they don't want for you to get closer. They make it so scary for you. They threaten you with, I'll see you, I'll take you to court, so that it will help you to back up. You back up, and you don't want to go close to politics. You don't want to challenge them. You don't want to question their integrity. I'm challenging Jacob Zuma of South Africa. I'm not South African, but I'm African. I'm challenging Jacob Zuma that this news, whether it's new or old news, this kind of propaganda or an agenda will never help Africans. And these are the good way to prepare us for another slavery. And that slavery is on the way coming, and it would be economic slavery. At first, it was a change. And the video that I show you, you see how the British are speaking, and it's in everywhere. When you watch this right-wing ringers on the media, they will let you know that, hey, you guys should stop talking about slavery reparations or whatever. It is your grandfather, your kings and queens who sold you. It is not the queens or the Charleses or the King Philips or whatever. It's not them. When they came to Africa, it is your grandfather or your so-called your great kings and queens who sold you. And it is in the books of this history. And they are learning it. They are pushing it to their young ones. And when you see Europeans, and the Europeans will never allow you African to tell them that, oh, your great grandfathers came to Africa and took us into slavery. They will never allow you. But when even if they listen, they know you don't know what time it is. Because they know, they have been taught by their fathers and their mothers that it is your grandfather, it is your king, your chief, whatever. They sold you. It's not them. So we need to pay attention as an African. We need to pay attention and stop joking. We like jokes too much. We joke and then after the day, then we will come back here, then we start crying, or then we are just making unnecessary noise. But instead of us to pay attention, so that when we are electing leaders, we will understand the people that we want them to lead us. We don't pay attention. We just follow the Hollywood, the football matches, the classicals, or whatever. And these are all the agendas for you to forget yourself. And at the end of the day, when we come back here, you see them crying on social media and every time, oh, this and that. No. When your leaders fail you, it is an opportunity for you to change the failure. It's an opportunity for you to make a decision to return that failure. But when they fail you and you accept it and you don't want to accept it, learn and make changes, you continue. And we are going to continue what happened 500 years ago, because we don't pay attention. We don't monitor them. We don't listen to them and understand what they mean. We just take anything for granted, like we are normal people. Africans are the normal people on this planet. That's what they describe us. We are so normal, and we like normal things. And in life, any person that chose to create business, you don't do normal things. You don't do what everyone is doing. You do crazy things, and it will get you there. And this is how Americans are doing. America don't do normal things. They do crazy things. They build, they capture, they destroy, and then it make them great. That's why America is great. I'm telling you, America is great, and they have done a lot. You know, Chinese are great. Chinese are becoming great because they know what they are doing. They know what they are doing. So the question is, you as an African, do you know what you are doing? Do you understand how the things are going? Do you understand your leaders? You don't. It's a fact. You don't. So let me show you another video that let me show you another video here. This is Jacob Zuma. Once again, let's watch Jacob Zuma again, and let's listen to his claims.
China doing in Africa? What's your take on that?
Western countries have come to Africa for centuries to rob Africa of its resources. They should be admitting what they've done. Some are rich because of the resources they took from Africa. They never thought of helping Africa to develop. They subjugated Africa. They took the political power, economic power, and then made us, therefore, socially, to have no power at all. We had to fight to liberate ourselves. They were never here to help. They were here to rob.
Now, the funny part of this interview is this: if the Western countries are there in Africa to rob, Mr. President, when you took power, the power, when you had the opportunity to lead South Africans, Mr. President, why did you always interested of amassing wealth for your own good? Because in order for you to liberate your people from the so-called poverty, you don't need to be a talkative. You need to be a creative. You need to let your people be creative. They need to create jobs in order for them to liberate themselves, the people from so-called poverty. But you are interested of building yourself. You don't build your people. You don't create jobs. That's what South Africa, always chaos in South Africa. Mr. President, with all due respect, because you can't tell me that Chinese are there just having a conversation talking about America every day. Whenever they are trying to be defensive, still they are pushing their citizens to be creative. They are giving them enabling environment for them to create jobs. Because when the people have jobs, they start to earn something. They start to create wealth. When people start to create jobs, they start to create wealth. And those wealth that they are creating will eliminate or liberate them from financial strengths. It will take them from financial difficulties or challenges, and then one day they start to talk about leadership, how to control the other side. That's how now anywhere you meet a Chinese, they will tell you China is going to take control one day. Anywhere if you meet any serious Chinese, they will tell you China is going to take control. So Mr. President, when at your age, when we allow for you to throw this agenda that to put in the minds of the young ones that they should be so comfortable for the Chinese pushing the agenda. It is a failure move. It's a failure tactics. And the young African must not believe that any country is coming to help us. No, we shouldn't believe that. We should make sure we are going to partner with them. Yet we need to make sure we don't use our resources unnecessarily. We don't destroy all our eggs and expect the chickens to come. Because Chinese did not misuse their funds. They did not misuse their taxes that they are taking from their people, and then they behave like Father Christmas, and then they send the money to you because you're an African. No, Chinese will never do that. They don't give free lunch in China. If Americans did not give you free lunch, it's same as the Chinese. They will never give you free lunch. Take it or leave it. And I'm doing this video for future references because I know what time it is. And as I told you, if a former president starts to talk like this, they are trying to prepare the minds of the young ones to believe that, oh, even if you can't do it, other country will come and do for you. But that's not the case. It's not true. No country is there to defend you. No country is there to build your country. Every country is built by their own people. But yet you need to have a strategic and defensive tactics so that you can communicate or partner with other country. So if you are saying that the Western countries came to Africa to steal or to extort, same as the Chinese. And today, there's a saying that the old friends are the good friends. And Mr. President, we are not taking this. Let's review the video again.
After decolonization, they continue to do so. They could no longer use political power. They influenced it indirectly, but they held on to the economic levers of these countries. They were dominating. They were benefiting. They were doing nothing to help us. They created banks that were instruments of subjugating us. They would say, for an example, to the IMF, when the IMF will say, my country is in trouble.
You see, there's one thing here that we need to decode here. You see, in life, anytime you are looking for help, you become so vulnerable. You don't need to look for help when you have a stand. You see, anytime as a human, you are always looking for help. You become so vulnerable and you